So that's it in a nutshell. I'll be happy to answer questions that you may have this time. Sorry, I can't answer.
Thank you very much for those comments. Do you have any?
Sorry. I'm Hans Sieber from Pennswood Village. I appreciate your comments about financial liability and strength. Do you have any assessment of the CARF system of self-accreditation?
The question is about an assessment of the CARF system of self-accreditation. I'll try to answer that without putting my foot in my mouth and so on. That system started out with, at the time I think it was ISA, or IAHA, 3 names ago. It was born out of what I would the Quaker Valley, Kendall and Pennswood, so y'all one of our clients, in the accreditation process. And then it marked out. In fact, I was the first actuary who was a member of the financial advisory panel. It is an ad hoc financial review based on individual panel members' assessment. It's not an objective or quantitative approach. It deals a lot with the accounting statements. So, as far as a financial, let me explain. A third of our clients are accredited. And I feel our clients pretty much are on sound financial backing. But there are, if you look at all the accredited CCRCs, it's not a rigorous financial evaluation. But then the financial piece is not the only reason part of the accreditation package. So I think there are ways it could be strengthened, but it's really more of a judgment call than sort of a rigorous sort of financial assessment.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that 400,000 residents of CCRCs nationally?
Yes, there are about 2,000 CCRCs nationwide, and they advertise probably sort of 200 to 250. So that's where 400,000 from. Back in the 80s, the number was about 250,000. So there's been some growth. Again, it's such a small portion of the entire universe. And again, many times CCRCs are compared and say, well, you're not a mainstream product. Well, that's okay. There's still plenty of room for CCRCs to grow, even with their small size, so to speak. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So where are you from? Where's your...
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Oh, the question was where we're based in Atlanta, Georgia. But we have offices in Missouri and just in Missouri right now. Yes, yes, sir.
I apologize for speaking twice. Do you have any thought about whether NACRA should be encouraging us all to have some standard of, you might say, residents' rights, residents' participation in governance, or residents' ability to organize themselves, or residents' ability to communicate with management? Shouldn't there be some kind of industry-wide standard that we can hold up? I've heard since I've been here that in some CCRCs there's no resident member of the governing board, and others there are resident members, but they're picked by the management, and others, residents elect members to be on the governing board. You know, there's nothing uniform. Shouldn't there be something uniform that we could all adhere to at once?
A good question. Should there be sort of a uniform set of residents' rights within CCRCs? Before I answer the question, let me say first, my expertise is strictly financial analysis. Even though I've seen a lot of CCRCs and spoken with a lot of boards, one thing I have observed, residents on boards of CCRCs is predominantly a West Coast phenomenon. On the East Coast, you generally speaking, do not have residents on boards of trustees. We have clients on both sides. I must say that our clients are probably the better managed and the more forthright community. So even on the East Coast, where residents may not be on the board, there's a residents association, and whenever many times the board insists that we go in and share our results unfiltered with the residents. I've done that with many Westminster Canterbury, the Virginia area, I've done it with Kendall facilities, etc. So good management doesn't necessarily need to say residents on boards or not. Now, we're not charged our residents with the rights, Bill of Rights. I know there's some examples out there. It would be helpful. Certainly, if there's not, by doing the kind of things in the website, say good practices or best practices, you can list those kind of things. That also would be part of your rating of various facilities, so forth, in terms of what is their openness or willingness to sort of share things, and so forth. Yes, sir.
I'm a resident, but I'm also on the board of the organization that is the holding company for the place where I live, and I'm also on the board of Aging Services of California, so I hear a lot of industry talk. And it seems to me, and I may be wrong about this, but it seems to me that many of the nonprofit providers are feeling as if the for-profit world is going to take this over, and they almost can't fight that. And I wonder if you have any sense of that at all.
Question is, what about the growth of for-profits, especially like CCRCs? Been working in the industry 30 plus years. I say 95% of my clients are not-for-profit. I don't have a sense of how much for-profits have grown over the last few years, but there are a fair number of them out there. But also, let's say 20 years ago, they used a very complicated legal structure called a master trust to minimize income tax on entry fees. Now they've got more sophisticated, but I know like a few of them have backed out, like the Hyatt and a couple other big hotel chains who were interested in this have backed out. Now there are a couple of for-profits management groups, but they all run a bunch of nonprofit facilities. I think, and again, I'm speaking anecdotally and beyond my real expertise, I think where nonprofits are at the weakest is in their management efficiency style. It's not a question of providing good services to residents and recognizing that costs dollars. But the point is, you still need to be efficient. You need to hold people accountable. You need to look at your budget and see if there's ways you can provide the same services with less people and so forth. So it's just good management. Now, in lessons that's just talk, but it's just that kind of attitude. For some reason, because of the for-profit nature, for the ones that work with us, I don't see a big difference in the level of services they're providing, but they will do it on a more cost-effective basis. So there obviously is some sort of disconnect. Now, they haven't considered because they got big taxes on profit, whereas nonprofit doesn't. So it seems to me, if nonprofits are really afraid by for-profits taking over, which I'm not sure is happening yet, then they need to go in and learn from for-profits how to run their businesses better. I mean, that's what the lessons should be learned, and either forming partnerships with them or just going in and hiring some of their key people and so forth. Really, nonprofits really should not be afraid of the majority of this industry. They got a huge advantage of being nonprofits. You know, and also psychologically they have a huge advantage because when you're moving in and paying that entry fee the month, you're thinking in the back of the mind, it's going for profit. So if nonprofits lose out, it's because of their own lack of ability to manage and run a business. Yes, sir.
Could you please comment on your experiences on the wisdom of entrance fees for CCRCs versus those that function on a fee for service?
Okay.
Thomas Circle in Washington, D.C. currently has 92% occupancy. Maplewood in Bridgeport, West Virginia, been open 12 years, has never achieved 60% occupancy. They are both for profit.
Okay. Question is, what about a fee or fee-for-service model? Which would not include more of a rental model. Is that what you're thinking now when you said the fee-for-service? A rental model. Ideally, it just be your own choice. What happens is many rental facilities actually are priced underneath what the true costs are, so that gives them an advantage. But basically, offering an entry fee product is no more risky or no less viable than a rental property. What happens is people are, and that's about promoting this lifestyle, people are very reluctant to pay that upfront fee to move in, even though maybe 30% of their costs, and buy into this great long-term care policy. Back in the 80s, you'd be surprised. I would say the majority of folks living in the CCRC were retired teachers with their pensions. So it really wasn't an upgrade product. In the 90s and 2000s, it became more of an upgrade product because of the high cost of construction, the high entry fees, but still affordable by a large number of folks. I don't see anything inherently wrong with the entry fee concept. But when real estate banks allow people unwilling, even if they have dollars elsewhere, to take less from the house or they have a problem with the house, so they can't make that transition to move into a CCRC. But to me, it's about the education of the public at large. It's about the lifestyle. Question is, you're 75 years old, 79 years old, average age moving to CCRC. And my kids live 1,000 miles away, and I have a few friends in my city. Am I better off taking the risk of, if I live another 20 years, being isolated alone in my house, and if I have a spouse, she'll have to drive me over 30 miles to me in my nursing home or assisted living facility, or am I better off moving into a CCRC now and developing a network and friends and so on, and having all the same freedoms, I mean, independence I have now at home, with virtually no more cost. So it's about a mindset, but basically fee for service is no better, is really no better deal than entry fee if they're priced correctly. Yes, sir.
Yes. Would you care to comment on the IRS position on things like when a person runs out of money with no fault of their own in a CCRC? Are they really enforcing that?
Well, the question is,
In a nonprofit.
in a nonprofit, actually, the facts are the following. There is no IRS rule that says, well, there's no rule, federal or state rule that says for a nonprofit CCRC, if you run out of money, they can't actually leave. The reason they don't, typically, is because most of the nonprofits are 501c3s, so if they ask someone to leave who ran out of money on their own, through no fault of their own, they put themselves in a position of a scrutiny for the 501c3 process. So from a practical viewpoint, no CCRC does that. Even in egregious cases where people give away their money and so forth. So basically, it's not a formal rule, but from a practical viewpoint, no CCRC wants to take the risk that, you know, we put this Jones out, she ran out of money, it wasn't her fault, then our answer, they would probably, based on the plan, they probably lose their 501c3. They don't want to take that risk.
How about the ruling, I don't know if it's a ruling or a regulation, that not-for-profits have to have lower priced rooms for people?
I'm not familiar with a ruling like that. I know that many of our clients, and particularly, I'm not trying to isolate all the methods, but I know they utilize the Episcopals as well. Many of them have separate foundations where part of their mission is to go out and recruit members who can't afford the full rate, and they will subsidize it. I know my first study was with Westminster Cambridge in Richmond, and their goal was to have 25% of their residents on some form of fellowship. And in fact, they raised money for that, and not only just entry fee fellowship, but a monthly fee fellowship. And so they raised money to subsidize the fact that those residents do not pay their rates and so forth. And many of our clients use one of our products that when someone runs out of money, they go in and apply, and they go in from the fellowship funds, make up their shortfall. But one of the things is that it's somewhat embarrassing and hard for a resident to go in and say, I no longer can pay my way. But most of our clients we work with have dollars and will accommodate them if they come in and ask. It's about the resident coming in and ask for it.
Thank you.
I live in a CCRC in Connecticut. I'm a resident there for 10 years. 3 years ago, the facility where I reside undertook a CCRC at home program. It's a start, and it's about 3 years old now, and they're struggling market-wise to reach a critical mass. There's a concern among some residents that there is a financial risk here that puts the fundamental art CCRC at risk and its residents. Would you comment on that, please?
All right. The concept of care at home is basically providing the healthcare component, the assisted living and nurse care to residents in their homes, so instead of them moving in, they can buy the healthcare part of the continuing care contract and stay in their homes as long as possible, actually get home care, and may even never move into institutionalized assisted living and nursing care. I have comments on this, and I may say the wrong thing, but particularly I think I know what we're talking about. This concept was developed in 1985. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation funded 4 pilot sites. We did the actuarial work for 3 of them. Friends, like their home was one of them, Cadbury was another. We did their work, there's one in Riverside and one in Huntington. And it's really a long-term care policy. Our firm is known about, we have 2 active clients, part of our CCRC clients, but we really have gone out and tried to work a lot in that market. It's been slow growth. what has happened is there have been one or two developers touting this product as the next great thing. And it's a good concept. I'm not knocking the concept, but here's the rub. When long-term care insurance started with the insurance company, there are a lot of insurance companies in the business who are not there now. They underpriced their product to get market share and decided it wasn't worth it and moved out. With CCRCs, it's a tough sell, particularly if you're doing it upfront. In fact, friends who used to have an upfront fee now just do it strictly on a monthly basis, and they've got over 2,000 members now. Often with the CCRC, there's a need for startup money because you got to do marketing, etc. With their like CCA at home, right? So they'll borrow money temporarily from the CCRC to be paid back as you get to that critical mass. I don't know of any site that's got over 100 people in less than 5 years. It only takes 10 years or so. So it is a drain. Now what is happening, and I need to say this professionally and carefully, the folks who are promoting the concept right now are really developers. They get paid a percentage of the first 150 sales. There is an independent actuarial review in most cases. And I'm not saying anything about that. We don't do this, I won't comment on that. But the point is, the developer wants to sell these and convince and say, oh, it's low cost startup. Well, the fact is it's not. There's often have to be cash flow subsidies for a while. The critical mass break even is a cash flow break even, but it's not a liability break even. The reserves are there. You're dealing with small numbers. Now, if you're CCRC, you got 200, 300 members all brought in, and you've got some overhead that you're sharing in the bill, so that makes this healthcare cost a small portion of everything. But with the CCA at home, it's right out there for you. I think the concept is good. It is a high-risk proposition right now, and providers should just be I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. They should just be careful about it. In fact, personally, I think it's riskier starting a CCH at home product than building a new CCRC if you got a strong waiting list. Because pretty much with the new CCRC, you know you got your waiting list, you can do 7% pre-sales, you find a location, you know pretty much whether or not you got a good location or not, and you go with it. With a CCH, because there's no really buy-in, you don't know you can be spending money for a while. So I don't know if I answered the question, but it is something that is it's challenging, that's all.
Thank you very much. That's a very comprehensive answer. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a lot for coming out and your candor and talking with us. And I'd say to Joe, CCAH is running an insurance business on the cheap. And it's not the best idea to do because it's not regulated by the insurance departments in most states, and maybe it should. But I think one of the things that's come through loud and clear here today is how actuarial the concepts are that are inherent in these retirement communities. And that tends to be downplayed somewhat as something that we really need to keep in focus. But the question I wanted to ask you is goes in a different tack, and that is, for lower income people, we have programs like the PACE program of all-inclusive care for the elderly, which is a kind of an outreach program that's been funded by the federal government to some extent. There's some challenges with it, but is there a way that we can integrate the CCRC concept to serve all the segments of society in an integrated way, or does the affinity nature of a community militate against that? I was intrigued by your mention of a community that provided fellowships, sort of like the university model. The universities have done a very good job of integrating their university offerings to reach more segments of society. Is it possible to do that for CCRCs?
I think it's possible. The group I mentioned with the fellowship is a combination of the Episcopal and Presbyterian churches who combine together. I know many of our Methodist clients have a law, and most Lutheran clients have a fairly substantial fellowship program. Virtually all of the Masonic communities are 100% fellowship because they take whatever assets the person has at the time. Mm-hmm. But back to the base point, is it possible that the continuing care concept is going to be affordable by the lower economic segments? I would probably say not, because your typical contracts work for $500,000, which means you need to have assets and income over your lifetime that's going to be over $500,000. Now, does that mean that lower income segments cannot move in? No. If the community has decided we're going to raise charitable dollars to support people who who can't move in, then they can do that to a certain degree and so on. One thing I would add though, this is my personal experience, I wish that aunt passed away, and she was a retired school teacher, and her pension was well within the upper, well over $50,000, and had she sold out, she would have easily qualified for most CCRCs. So that my point is, while CCRCs have gravitated toward affinity groups and maybe move somewhat upscale, there's a much larger percentage of the population that can afford it, just to help really realize how great a lifestyle this can be. So they're still thinking, I need to stay in my home. And I understand, no one wants to move and so forth, but they don't really get to see what a good lifestyle change this can be. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to go back to the top of your presentation on building the organization and making a difference in the retirement housing industry. Today, you heard me tell you we had 964 members out of 400,000. I have traveled in states in the USA where I was like John the Baptist saying there is a thing called NACRA. There were no members in those states. And there are states, and I travel more or less on my own, but because we have no money to travel. How do you reach the vast majority of states in the USA where there are no NACRA members, and we have no bridges, we have no leads, we have no entrees?
Good question to talk about. Probably all right. But the first thing I would suggest doing is doing an internal survey of your membership and find out the top 5 reasons why they joined and how they heard about you. Because that will give us some knowledge about what are the sources folks are going to. I think a lot of them have to be word of mouth initially and so forth. Because I don't know if you get much help from the state association, the LeadingAge state association, but it's got to be word of mouth. But first, let's find out what your members are doing. Then also, I know we work with a lot of things. It's a little bit of a different thing because we are working with board and management and so forth. But I will certainly pledge where ways we can help you to do things, promote stuff. We'll try to work with you on that and be a member of that. But
can we put that in writing so she has it? He's going to help us.
I said different, but my word is my bond, so that's good. No, but seriously, because the thing is, I am still an active consultant, so it's really not fair for me to take too active a role, because at the end of the day, I recommend active studies. So if y'all come out and say every facility has active studies, it's sort of self-serving. But I still think that, as a member, I can work through the guys. Let's do this survey. Let's find out why, and it may be something that you may find out and say, well, how do you find that? When you ask yours how they found out about that, you may find out that there's one thing that, I don't know what it is, that is there, and that's what you begin going after. But the other thing is, finding out how to get to it, but also, you've got to come up with a convincing reason, why should I spend the $15, not a lot of money, but why should I join? Because you're already retired, and you fought your battles, so life now is just to be enjoyed, in a sense. And so there's a natural, what's the word, inertia, so to speak.
That's what everybody asks. Why should I join?
Right, and so we gotta figure out some reason for that.
Absolutely.
May I go back briefly to the low-income housing part? In Northern Virginia, we have Lutheran Fellowship houses. They have several of them, and those are low-income. They are financed partially through raising money, but partially through vouchers, as you would for low-income housing, and they pay a third of their income, whatever it happens to be. We are in partnership with one that's just half a mile from us, and actually they had the license for a health facility, and we didn't. The Presbyterians didn't, so we worked out a deal, and we have the health facility, but they can't only use it, so they are essentially an independent living facility with the access to ours. And also the counties around have worked out some low-income, they don't call them CCRCs, but they're in essence that.
Right. That's very interesting. The thing about it is that also have a financial financially solvent CCRC that is stable, and then certainly you can leverage that, because like I said, y'all needed the nursing beds, which weren't available to you. Leverage this best run well, and then you can begin either through other subsidies to expand the base of work with partners like that.
About 30 seconds, because we gotta, I'm sorry to have to do this.
I'd like to make just one quick suggestion or two about building membership, just building on what Bob Nicholson said. One recommendation I would make is work with LeadingAge, because LeadingAge is opening up to residents in a great way. They invited residents to come. We had a session this morning where they listened very carefully what residents had to say. LeadingAge has affiliates in many states. If you can work with them to encourage the state organization to foster macro membership, would help a great deal. Another recommendation I have is for this meeting to schedule this at a time where there are interesting other topics to be discussed is not a good idea. I think this meeting should have been scheduled at a time where there's nothing else going on. For example, only when the exhibits are open, but not during a time where there are other interesting topics that some of us might listen to.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I know that we're looking at CCRCs, and I just wanted to present you with this gem that was published by the Connecticut group. If there are questions you should ask, things you need to know, or things you should like to know.
Thank you.
But thank you so much, and I wanted to give you one.